Good afternoon, there you go. Good afternoon, Rotarians.
Hey, Tim.
I was expecting a more spirited response. It's Sidehawk Week. Let's have a little fun. Good afternoon, Rotarians. There we go. So with Beth here, I obviously knew what tie to wear today for all you cyclist fans in the audience, but I was unsure on what jacket to wear. So I thought to myself, a black sport coat's kind of boring, and I don't have a gold jacket. And I was thinking, and then it hit me. And I went down to my basement closet, and pulled out from my, Rubbermaid containers. Fall of 1999, and I'm glad we wore our stuff bigger back then. I did not buy it at a garage sale. Thank you, though, for that confidence. Cross country, fall of 1999. Like I said, it still fits like a glove. So I'm going to ask you not to put this on YouTube so my former teammates can make fun of me. Thank you to our two greeters today, Eric Obergfell and Jeff Stickle. Thanks for volunteering to greet. Appreciate that. As a reminder, you can sign up to be a greeter every week for our meetings. And thank you to Susan Voss for providing our moment of inspiration and Pledge of Allegiance and four-way test. So Susan will come up here and do that, and then we will greet each other as normal and get our program going. Susan?
So I'm going to give some brief moments that were written over 80 years ago. How I wish I could sing and play the piano. It is a sad mistake to try to be the lead man in everything you attempt. The axiom, if it's worth doing at all, it's worth doing well, has its limitations. Stay on the ball most of the time, but learn to coast between moments of all-out effort. That was written by Niall Kinnock on June 1st, 1943, 2 days before he died. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Let's greet everybody.
Thanks for coming. Ready for
Like I said, it's going to be warm here. All right, let's return to our seats so So normally at this time we'd announce each of our guests, weekly. We announce them individually and recognize them. Unfortunately, today we have about 20 guests here today, so I'm not going to sit here and go through that with everyone. So would all of our guests that are here today just stand and be recognized? Thank you all for visiting us today. We appreciate it. We're delighted to have you here. I'm sure you all came to see me speak and not Beth. So, all right. We have a few slides to go through before our speaker. We don't have I thought we had the happy birthday slide. Is Steve Beckley here today? Steve? If you see Steve, it is his birthday today, so wish Steve a happy birthday. And then our own past president, Kevin Kassier, is celebrating a birthday today. Is this the birthday you get to move up a set of tees at the golf course, Kevin? Or is this...
I've already done that.
Oh, you've already done that. Okay, good. Well, happy birthday. Also, there's a flyer on your table. Scott, you want to hand me the flyer? I forgot it.
There's one up there.
This one. My apologies, I forgot to grab one. Flyers on your table from our own Doug Bigford. Doug, thank you for sponsoring the table flyers today, for promoting the upcoming walk to fight Alzheimer's. Be sure to look at that flyer and support our members' events and events that are important to them. And thanks to Doug for his $50 donation to the Rotary Club of Des Moines Foundation. And any of our members can provide table flyers and bring them and pass them out of the tables for a $50 donation. So just talk to Kitty for more details on that. Okay, now slides. I would jump my gun earlier. Where in the world is Club 27 for our numerous guests that are here today? The Rotary Club of Des Moines is the 27th club founded in 1911 of over 36,000 Rotary clubs worldwide. So we like to have a little fun of where our members are traveling. And today we have past President Doug Salzgaver, who was in Ireland recently and sent us a number of photographs. So on the upper left, that's Doug with the, I think it's the Quiet Man statue. Is that right, Doug?
Yes.
Yep, there you are, from the 1952 movie with John Wayne. Then we have Doug in the bottom left drinking Guinness. Then we have Doug drinking whiskey in the bottom right. I think I'm sensing a theme, Doug. And then in the upper right, we have appears to be some sort of American football game. I can't recognize the team. I don't think it was a very big deal, but it looked like it was a fun time, Doug. So thanks for sending those photos in. And a reminder, you can take us with you and send your photos into Kitty, and we'll highlight the locations you've been. And now, it's Rotary Law and Disorder time. For our guests that have not been here this year, I am a practicing attorney here in town, and so my shtick for this year is to every week provide a little humor, something funny or absurd that's happening in the legal world or that's happened in the legal world in the past, and I like to try and theme it up with our speaker. And so for this week, we're going to go back to 2009 college football season. And this was the year Nick Saban had Alabama finally back after he came back from the NFL. And Matt Brown was still at Texas. And those two teams finished 1-2 in the year-end poll. And they were going to face off in the BCS title game on January 7th, 2010. Well, that presented a problem for an attorney in Alabama named John Terry. Do you have the slide, Kitty? So this is an actual legal filing from Alabama in December of 2009. Mr. Terry was scheduled to be in trial January 4th, 2010. He did not want to miss the Alabama-Texas game out in Pasadena. So Mr. Terry filed a motion. You go ahead and flip it forward. Here we go. I'm not going to make everyone read that. Obviously, it's very small. But Mr. Terry filed a motion to continue the trial. And I'll quote a few of his great paragraphs. He says, "This case was set for trial several months ago before certain monumental events occurred that were beyond the anticipation of the attorneys and the clients. Since setting of this case, one of the two great college football teams in this state has reached levels of on a national scale that have not been enjoyed by any team in the state for 17 years. Currently, one of the two great teams in the state, I'm assuming he's referring to Auburn, are playing for a national title and have enjoyed an undefeated season and clinched the SEC title. Most of the attorneys representing all the named defendants have tickets and reservations to be in Pasadena on January 7th, which would conflict with the trial date. And then, of course, this is always a pro tip, always make the judge feel guilty. Then he says, in fact, the Honorable Jim Lloyd has children that live in the area and is scheduled to be with them in California. So playing on the judge's heartstrings. And then attempts to resolve this conflict, i.e. the motion to continue the trial, have not been successful with the plaintiff's attorneys, as they are fans of the other institution. And he says, unfortunately, that response remains short-sighted as they may one day find themselves in the same position as the defendant's attorneys. So, and then he goes on to say a number of other things, but he says, it is also understood that many of the witnesses involved are trying to acquire tickets to the game and are scheduled to be at the game in Pasadena, and certainly any juror selected to participate will likely be preoccupied and not be able to devote their full attention to the case before them. And the parties would be prejudiced and distracted by such major events of significant importance to so many people in this state. And then if you have to blow up in there. In his final paragraph, he says, "Roll Tide, and may the Longhorns be defeated." So that was his motion, and I hope to file a motion similar to that one day, Beth, and hopefully there'll be an Iowa State fan on the other side that I can poke at.
Does it grant it?
Yeah, and whether we'll hope the judge is a Hawkeye fan at the time too, right? All right. So with that all out of the way, we have past president and celebrating his birthday, Kevin Kassir will now introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Kassir.
Okay. We won't make the Cyclone fans hear the whole thing out there. Well, it is a pleasure to be up here today. Tim and I wanted to bring a little energy and give some Cyclone fans a little listen to one of the greatest fight songs in college sports. So there you go. Oh, and before I continue, Doug, I got to do this right. So I don't see your shirt, so. Now we can begin. We have fun here, back and forth with Cyclone and Hawkeyes, and I think that is part of the fabric of what makes this club great. And so what a great week to have this speaker today, Cy-Hawk Week, and the national exposure that the state is getting, whether you're a Cyclone or a Hawkeye, with Fox Sports being there with their big new broadcast from Jack Trice. And with this as a backdrop, we could not be more thrilled that we've coordinated our keynote this week to be the athletic director of the University of Iowa, Beth Getz. A special thank you to Derek Stevens. Derek, would you please stand so we could recognize you? Because you've been key to making this happen. Derek's visited us a few times, and I've got to know him a little bit, and Des Moines is his market, and so he comes here quite a bit. So I'm going to publicly say, Derek, we would welcome you to become a member of the Rotary Club if you want to join us. No matter what team that you're a fan of, we can all agree that college sports has become a much more challenging and uncertain environment. And it'll be really interesting to hear from Beth on this topic. And we Hawkeye fans could not be happier to have a person of this caliber leading the Iowa Athletic Department during these complex times. Of course, her resume is strong. She played soccer at Clemson University. She was the head coach at the University of Missouri St. Louis, got her master's there, and was the assistant athletic director there. She went on to Ball State as an associate athletic director, deputy athletic director at Minnesota, and also the interim athletic director, COO at UConn, back to Ball State as the director of athletics, and then to Iowa as the deputy director. And then in June 2023, she became the interim athletic director, and early in 2024 she was officially named the head of athletics at Iowa. But more than her resume, Hawkeye fans are impressed with her demonstrated leadership. In my line of work, you can recognize a strong leader, and Beth demonstrates the characteristics of a great leader. First of all, she has a vision. She articulates that and brings clarity to the organization. Secondly, she has the strength to make tough decisions and holds people accountable. And third, she's a great communicator. She's thoughtful, she's authentic, she's transparent, at least as much as you possibly can be in your line of work, which effectively brings along the staff, the fans, and the media. So all of this is why I'm really excited for, and I ask you to give a warm Rotary Club of Des Moines welcome to the athletics director at the University of Iowa, Beth Getz.
Thank you all so much for having me, and I appreciate that kind introduction, Kevin. I think I can say, regardless of who you're cheering for, who's fired up and ready for the game on Saturday? So I know I'm in mixed company here. Can I just get a feel for, am I 50-50 in this room? How many Hawkeye fans do I have? Okay, we can hold our own. We can hold our own. Although I think, Steve, I was spotting you from across the room. I love the tie. So he might win for the best dressed here. So it is really just such an honor to be with you all today, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to have an opportunity to be a part of such a great team at the University of Iowa, and to get a chance to represent our great student athletes in our institution overall. I've had some stops along the way, and I shared this often that every place I've been is special for a different reason. But the University of Iowa, the state of Iowa, is just special. It really is a true community, and it just is so nice to be at a place where everyone is focused on supporting our young people, supporting our communities, and what is really good for our entire state. So I'm just thrilled to have an opportunity to support them, to support the mission of the institution, and to get to know all of our Hawkeye fans and all of our Cyclone fans across this great state. It's been an exciting new year for the University of Iowa so far. We just welcomed the second largest freshman class in school history, and so campus is thriving. We've got top-rated programs in writing in the Tippie College of Business, and so proud that we know our healthcare system serves our entire state, and know they're doing great work and great research to ensure that the people of Iowa are receiving the care that they need to. We're also really lucky, particularly at this time. We're going to talk a lot about change, because there is more than enough of that to go around, and not just in our industry, but I think in the world in general. But it's been really critical for us that we have great alignment with our university. Obviously, the Board of Trustees from the state and our president, Barbara Wilson, have been just incredibly supportive, and we've tried to navigate everything that's going on. I will say this, with all the change in college athletics, there was a lot of talk about, hey, people aren't going to watch college sports. And yet, over the last couple of years, we've seen nothing but our, the ratings from a media standpoint continue to rise. NIL is going to change the focus of our student athletes. Yet, in the last 3 years and culminating last season, we have the highest GPA on record for our 650 student athletes with a 3.25 GPA. They've got an 88% graduation success rate and a 96% placement rate after graduation. And so while everything around us might be changing, our commitment to their experience as student athletes in competition, as students in the classroom, and really developing them for the next 40 years of their lives so they can go on and be sitting in these chairs that you are to serve their communities and families hasn't changed, and that's what we're going to hold tight to at the University of Iowa. We're really proud of the individuals that represent all of our student athletes and lead our student athletes. We actually have 6 head coaches that are native Iowans. 5 of them were student athletes and actually wore the uniform, and we now have 2 that have been inducted into our Hall of Fame. So we just, we know how important it is to have people that are gonna represent our institution and represent the state in a really great way. We were able to hire 2 head coaches. One, I'm still getting some things thrown at me when I drive through Des Moines by the Drake crowd, so I'm getting Drake fans in here. But we're thrilled that we got to welcome Ben McCullum to our staff in this off season, and obviously he did some great things just down the road here in his 1 season at Drake. But he has hit the ground running. We all know he's a native Iowan and has a really sincere and deep love for the Hawkeyes. And so he's already been a great addition. I've kind of talked to him about maybe not playing any games because he's been beloved, and you know, at some point we might lose a contest here, but really excited about the team he's put together. We also got to welcome back another alum, and Stacey Mae Johnson, who leads our softball program. She was Big Ten freshman of the year, won a Big Ten championship with the Iowa Hawkeyes softball team, went on to play in the Olympics with USA softball. So again, another great addition to our team across the board. From a fall sports standpoint, we are off and running, as are all of our college teams and high school teams. At this time of year, and it's already been a lot of fun. So our volleyball program, and we play in a pretty competitive league, so we're trying to climb our way up, and I think we're in year 4 here for our coach, and they started off 3-0, so we're really excited about that. Field hockey, which isn't a sport we know a lot about in our state, but we have an incredible tradition there, and they're currently ranked number 15. They already have a top 20 win under their belt. And then our women's soccer team, and we know we're talking a lot about football, but we got a little Cyhawk game tonight. They play Iowa State this evening. They're coming off a Sweet 16 run a year ago. We're currently ranked number 11, and also have a top 10 win for them as well. And of course, we are 1-0 in football with a big one coming on Saturday. We know we're going to play an incredibly well coached team and talented team up in Ames, and are excited to see where that's going to land. You know, one thing we're just really proud of, and certainly this is a great time to talk about it, is Kirk Ferentz is on the cusp of breaking what is just, you know, an incredibly special record to become the winningest coach in Big Ten history. And so he tied that, and we know he'll have an opportunity to break that yet this season with 205 wins. So when he gets to 206, it's going to be certainly a time of celebration. But we are one of only 5 teams that have won 8 or more games over the last 10 seasons. And we also, in the CFP era, have won 97 games, which is good for 11th in the country. So his incredible consistency, the way in which he leads our program, the culture he's built, the people he's surrounded himself with on staff have just been amazing. So it's a really fun and exciting time for him and the team. He'll be the last one to want to talk about a record breaking. All he's worried about is what happens on the field of play, but it is one that'll probably never be broken again in this day and age. Something about us, and well, both ADs and fans, we don't have a lot of patience anymore. But what he's accomplished is truly remarkable, and we're excited to get to celebrate that with him. It is a new era for college sports, and that might be you know, an understatement. And with all the change that we have going on, I think over the last few years, whether you're dialed into the details or not, I'm sure you've heard a lot about revenue sharing, and we talk a lot about one lawsuit, which my lawyers in the room can help me out with in the House case and the House settlement that moved us into a revenue sharing era. But the truth is, there's been hundreds of legal actions taken against the NCAA, against the Power 5 conferences, that really changed the marketplace in which we work. And so the truth of it is, we've got to take some accountability. For those of us that have worked in the industry, as the resources grew and we put those into facilities and coaching salaries, the one group that we didn't address because we were trying to hold on, right, to the purity of college sports, was how do we support students in a different way. And because of that inaction, our ability now to make those decisions has really become limited. And so the courts have stepped in. It's possible at some point in time we may have we may have Congress that might intervene. But we've been in this moment of really the unknown of how we create and how do we enter into this new territory, in which student athletes can share in some of the revenue in which they take part in creating. You know, overall, I think it's the right move. It's the right thing to do. We like seeing that our student athletes have this opportunity, but we're doing it now in an unregulated system, completely unregulated. There's not a fan in the country that hasn't heard about collectives and how much resources is going into different places. And so what we're really hungry for is to find a system that has some structure. Whether it's Pee Wee, football down the road or high school baseball, most organizations, and certainly at the pro level, are going to have a structure. They're going to have rules, they're going to have accountability, they're going to have enforcement, so that we can all play under the same tent and do that well. Certainly for those of us, I think in our state, to be sure, and I think I can speak for other institutions, but certainly the University of Iowa, we believe that's really critically important moving forward, is to find some sort of stability that allows us to maneuver this new era in a way that makes sense. The way that makes sense from a business perspective, and a way that makes sense for our fans and our institutions. So we thought when we got to a place this summer where there was an agreement in the settlement in the House case that was sort of the finish line. It turns out we've been in a packed crowd. We just got to the starting line, and it's probably going to be about 4 or 5 years at least of a continued unknown in this space. I'd like to tell you I have more optimism than that. But it's going to be a while till we kind of sort through what we have going on here. With that said, I'm incredibly proud of the way our coaches and our staff and our campus has responded. And I think Iowa is really well positioned to navigate what we're looking at. And so we do have the ability this year to launch into revenue sharing, which is resources shared directly from the institution, up to $20.5 million directly with student athletes. We've already been engaged with them. They have contracts. We've issued a first round of payments. That's all going really smoothly. We are very fortunate to be positioned in the Big Ten where we have resources to work to adjust that. So that'll be a part of our financial equation. We also have created what we call flight funds. It's a philanthropic mechanism to help support our student athletes. We've looked in much different ways at how to generate revenue, certainly in traditional ways, but also in non-traditional ways to help our bottom line. And so our industry just continues to change as we think about what that might look like. In our case, we also had a collective called the Swarm, and they are still working because in addition to revenue sharing, you also can have what we refer to as sort of above the cap real NIL. In our community here, we call that Caitlin Clark. So she had a real value, and it turns out companies wanted to be associated with her. So those are resources that student athletes actually can earn above what that $20.5 million cap is across our institution. So the Swarm will have a role to play in that. We hope from a membership and event standpoint, having some athletes do that. And then we also have Hawkeye Sports Properties that works with corporations that might have an interest in connecting and using some of our student athletes NIL to help market their service or their products. So again, a lot of changes across the board, but what I can assure you is when you're on campus or when you have a chance to come to Kinnick or when I walk into my office every day, and I know for some of us in this room, myself included, we have to think back a little bit about what it was like to be under 22 on our campuses. But our young men and women are those exact same young people that you all were. They're going to class. They make great decisions. They have a lot of good times. They perform well in competition. They make a lot of bad decisions because they're 19 and 20. They excel on an exam. They struggle on a quiz. All of those things are still true, and so we have the benefit of getting to see them in that environment day in and day out. So the more things change, the more they really do stay the same. And certainly at Iowa, we're committed to making the best decisions we can that align with who we are and leverage our strengths, but also leave room for us to evolve in this ever-changing new era of college athletics. So they shared with me that I could talk, and I can talk about the Hawkeyes for the next 3 hours. So if you guys want to stay put, we can go through team by team. I can tell you some really great stories. I was just sharing with these guys, in this day of revenue sharing, we've got some agents that represent some student athletes that obviously are certified and really good at what they do, and they're easy to work with. We also have a couple of people who are Johnny's uncle's best friend's next door neighbor that have decided to represent some of these students. So we've got a lot of those. But what I thought might be helpful is just to open it up for questions, specifically to anything we have going on our campus or across the athletic space. And I know there's just a lot of interest in what this new wave looks like. So I'm going to pause there. Now, there may be some I pass on giving you a specific answer, but nothing's off the table, so hit me with your best shot. Please, Scott, start us off.
All right, so this is kind of an oddball question. However, one of these days, Kurt Ferentz will leave the program. How much of your time, if any, do you spend looking around the college landscape at potential successors?
So the last time I was asked about a question similar to this, somebody asked me if all of this changing landscape was keeping me up at night, if I was losing sleep. And I said, well, that's sort of business strategy. So for all of you in the room, you know what that's like. It's part of the job. It's exhilarating. It's a typical challenge. I said, what keeps me up at night is these legendary coaches, at some point aren't going to be here anymore. And so that was my response. And no joke, 5 days later, Lisa Bluter walked in and retired. So Scott, I'm really sure how to lean into that one. But I do think, regardless of whether somebody is well into their career or has just arrived. I mean, part of our due diligence, and this would be true, in all of your roles in the community as well, is for us to continue to be prepared and evaluate. Now, do you always know exactly who your candidate's going to be? But I think to not have any idea of what you would do for any reason, if you needed to make a transition, I think it's prudent that we do some due diligence and that you're tracking on what your potential opportunities might be.
Great, thanks.
We appreciate you being here today, so thank you. To you, what constitutes a successful football season?
I think at the end of the day, we want to win everybody wants to win every single game, and so do we, right? And so lining up and having an opportunity to be successful each and every Saturday, but I think also playing your best football at a time where it really matters is important. One of the things that I think has made Iowa so successful, and I have the benefit of not being here my entire career, and I say that in the sense of you come into it with a little more of an objective view because you've seen football and other sports from other places, and you've also seen what Iowa has accomplished. But I think being able to have programs that you can continue to build, we all recognize that likely in football we're not recruiting just straight 5-star level talent, so we need to be able to develop our student athletes. We need to have them grow into great football players, and sometimes that takes a little time, but we want to see them progress throughout the season. I think that's a hallmark of what you see in Kirk's team. The game 1 to the end of the season, we play incredibly well in November as we get into the end of the season, and so I think that's really important. But being able to compete with the best in the country week in and week out is what we continually look for. It's not about a specific number of wins. I know our fans would love for us to say, hey, it's CFP or bust, or Rose Bowl or bust back in the day, and that is certainly what we do. But it's about how we trust the process to make sure that we continue to put a product on the field that you all can be proud of. We certainly want one that you enjoy watching, and you want to be able to compete both within the Big Ten and across the country. Yeah, Brian.
With the $20 million revenue sharing across the board for colleges, where does the university come up with that kind of funding?
Well, we are self-funded in athletics, and I appreciate the way you asked that question because somebody early on said, hey, when are they sending that $20 million? I said, no, you have to come up with the $20 million. And so I don't know if there's any tricks of the trade for the business men and women in the room, but when you add a $20 million expense line that's reoccurring, by the way, this isn't one project that's then moved off your books. it really does change the way you start to look at things. And so just from our perspective, the strategies that we were able to employ, and again, we feel really good about where we are. We certainly looked at how we were spending resources we already had. So we were able to reallocate some of those to start to fill the gap. We did have, thanks to our Big Ten network agreements, we had some increases that were planned to come this year that helped offset some of that 20.5. We've really looked at how we navigate and look at our revenue that comes in, and so not in the sense that you may have read about other institutions did this where they just maybe took and threw a 10% sort of tax on tickets. We didn't take that approach, but there is a lot of strategic things that you can do, and for those of you, again, in business, you're looking at the way in which you sell tickets, how you market things, are you making sure you're using the data to dynamically price in a way that really allows us to leverage the most from all of our competitions. Some of the rules around sponsorships have opened up. There's been some rule changes that allow us to engage with corporations in a little bit of a different way. And then we also, some of the resources that our passionate fans, many in the room, the ways in which you had supported the Swarm, to help support these efforts, we've transitioned those, we call them flight funds now, which are essentially philanthropic ways in which you can support through the foundation those revenue sharing dollars. And so really a compilation of a lot of different factors that'll help position us to be successful in this new era.
There's been so much realignment in the conferences. We're really not the Big Ten anymore, we're the big, I don't know what we are, but, whatever, but I mean, I assume you athletic directors talk about, when does that end? I mean, how many more can we have in our conference, or do we need more conferences, or what happens to Notre Dame someday, or, you know, I mean, when's that all gonna end, or where's the NCAA on all that?
Yeah, so the NCAA is probably not really involved in any of those decisions around what conference alignment looks like, and it certainly is a point of discussion. In the Big Ten, membership decisions are made by the presidents. Not that the athletic directors aren't engaged in that, because in the Big Ten it is, there's a couple factors that are always going to look at. One, is there academic alignment? There are real academic partnerships that happen between our faculty across the Big Ten footprint, and so the alignment there is really important. The other piece in this day and age is a conference, or is an institution going to be additive to a conference? And so you can bring someone in and basically distribute the resources you have by another, by 1/19 in this case, if we were gonna add another individual or two more teams. But do they have the value that's actually going to grow the conference in some way? Maybe that's visibility, maybe that's TV revenue, etc. There's a lot of conversations across the country, a lot of thought about whether you have super leagues, are you gonna have 2 leagues, should you have a couple conferences that are, is it bad for college sports to have a couple conferences that are as heavily resourced as the Big Ten and the SEC is? And I think all those are really valid perspectives. So I don't have an answer to what that's going to look like, but I think those discussions will continue. And in the Big Ten, again, I think there's a couple things that will continue to be drivers for us as those decisions might be made if an opportunity to consider another institution would become available.
This question probably is indicative of how complex it's getting, but does Iowa or any other college that you're aware of have a deferred compensation plan for the student athletes?
So, we do not. We have not made that a part of any of our packages. If you wanted to have a deferred payment, it would count into your current year cap. So if you're following into the pro industries, there are some ways in which you can sort of move your dollars from year to year, and that's not how this settlement cap was agreed upon. And so while it potentially could be something that somebody enters into an agreement with, that doesn't exist right now, and I think you won't see it unless that sort of window changes. Yeah, Mark.
The transfer portal has, I think, changed how we deal with students. So you don't even know if the students you have this year will be the students that will be there next year. Can you talk about the whole transfer portal experience and how that's gonna stay the same or change?
Yeah, let's put a lot of money in the system and then have free agency. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, and hey, by the way, does it align very well with my progress towards a 4-year and/or 5-year undergraduate degree? Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You know, I think initially, and if you look back historically, we've always had sports that had the ability to transfer anytime they wanted, and we've always had sports that have what we call the one-time transfer exception, and some that had the city year. And what I think occurred is at the same moment in which you broadened that was the same moment that NIL became permissible, and so it sort of created this chaos. When I mentioned earlier that because of our either poor or lack of decision making, you know, in the past decade or so, we've lost the ability to make a decision in terms of the transfer portal. And I'll need my lawyers in the room, but we've lost the ability to provide a lot of restrictions to that. And it really is a challenge in many ways. Most importantly, I think students should have some freedom of movement, just like any other student on your campus. Sometimes it's not a right fit, sometimes you got a family circumstance, but I also think it's our responsibility, one, to teach resiliency. We are in the business of education, and just because something doesn't go exactly right, how do we navigate that along the way and help support them in what they do? How do we keep them on track to earn a degree? So it is something we all continue to struggle with. I don't know where home is for you if you've been to 4 institutions as a fan. And you know, I think at Iowa we've had some great examples of one-year kids who have really fit who we are, and I applaud our coaches that even in this model, fit and culture's been number one. And so we miss sometimes, but that is what they try to do. I think about Lucy Olson, who was here a year, and people, you know, just love the way she represented the Hawkeyes. So it doesn't mean it can't work, but there's a lot of challenge, and I think in that for the student. We hear some success stories, but there are a lot of the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and it certainly doesn't endear them to have a place to call home and to pursue their degree in the timely fashion.
Beth, how would you rate the athletic facilities at the University of Iowa?
I like that. We're going to start calling ourselves the University of Iowa. I don't know. My buddy down there at Ohio State may have something to say about that. I actually think, and I'm going to talk about one specifically, but I think in general, we really have invested a lot in facilities across the board. I don't know if there's, they ask this question at Media Day to football student athletes every year, where's the toughest place to play, where do you like to play, and Kinnick Stadium is always on the list. Talk about a home field advantage, how loud it is, we get you backed up in that end zone, it's just incredible. And across all of our sports, I think we've made some investments over even, just the past 5 or 6 years, whether that be in baseball and women's soccer. So I think we're getting to be in a pretty good place with a few exceptions. One of those is Carver Hawkeye Arena. And I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about that. I love old arenas. I know I do get emails about why not just build something brand new. You can stick it, over by the mall, and for about $300 million, we probably could do that. But Carver has a lot of character, a lot of history. It's served us incredibly well. It's also going on 44 years old, and I'm well past 44, but after 44, we need a little love and attention, and so does Carver. And so that is a facility, really from a fan perspective, it's not as much about what the student athletes need. I think the infrastructure of that building is really good, but when you can't get parts and things aren't working as well, we also don't have seating options, premium seating options, which is how some segments of the population enjoy watching games. We need to make some improvements there. So some of you may have heard us talk about that. We've got a feasibility study going on for some improvements there. I think it's about a $65 million plan. We're in a leadership phase, so feel free to see me if you want to help support that. But I think that's really the space that's next on the list. And not to say we don't have other needs, but when I arrived, I'm just incredibly impressed with how well we care for our facilities. You can walk in some of those buildings 10, 15 years old, and they're just incredibly well maintained. So I think we're in a pretty good spot overall after we take care of Carver.
In this era of the revenue sharing and the transfer portal and a sort of a regulatory void and so forth, do you see a risk that some of the intermediate types of football programs like the Northern Illinois or the Miami of Ohio's or Appalachian States may not be able to survive it, in the sense that there'd be too much drying up of their talent pool or flux in their ability to maintain a talent pool?
Yeah, I think generally, I worry about all sports at every level, and certainly Olympic sports, some football, and I'll get back to your question, and mostly because I don't think that student athletes are better positioned to go out and be doctors and lawyers and teachers, but I do think we bring something different to the table when they're a member of your team, regardless of industry. And I don't want to see those opportunities eliminated for anyone, because I think it's access to education, and I think you can learn a lot when you're doing both things in college. The gap that exists, and I'm coming from a program in the MAC, which is two of those that you mentioned, where that resource gap between a school in the MAC, for example, and the Big Ten or the Big 12 has always really been significant. And so it is the fact that it's going to get a little bit bigger really material in how they build the team. The transfer portal makes it a challenge, but I don't know if it's as much just the revenue sharing piece. I think you're going to see, them be able to continue to challenge, but are they going to meaningfully have an opportunity to make a run in the college football playoff, regardless of, if we have 4, 12, 32, 48 teams in it? I don't know.
Last question.
Yeah.
No.
Yes,
I want a
Mark.
follow-up question. Just this morning, I was hearing a discussion regarding the talent pool availability. And it was talking about how the number of students that are actually going to be coming to universities is going to change significantly in the next few years. And in the particular discussion, they said that there will be 1 million fewer students going into college here in a not very far future. How is Iowa planning for that shortage of student talent?
We call that the enrollment cliff in higher ed, and they've been predicting that. I mean, it's just population, so really two things. You've got a change in population, and not everyone is choosing to go to college at the same rates, and they should go to college. But those two things are going to impact enrollments, I think, across college institutions across the country, and obviously maybe a little bit different impact in a state that's not quite as populated. At the University of Iowa, this is why we were talking about how excited we were about our second largest class, but it is something that we are distinctly continuing to plan for. And so part of that is how we expand our recruitment areas. The Big Ten expansion has actually allowed us to do a little bit of that. We actually have believe it or not, we attract a lot of students from the West Coast, California in particular, with some of our majors. And so that gives us a presence there, expanding our footprint into Milwaukee and some other places down into Missouri, Arkansas. And so it really is a lot of strategy, knowing that at some point in time here, we're all going to be fighting for a very similar group of students. We're going to see that across the country, and it's really unfortunate. I know we've seen one merger in our state already of two institutions, but I think it's unlikely, whether it be in Iowa. Ohio's a really good example of this. I think they've got a college within 50 miles of every single residency area in that state. Probably isn't sustainable. And maybe there's a right balance, but I think the pain points of having to work through that are certainly challenging. So we'll see a little bit along the way. Well, I think they're gonna cut me off here. I'm gonna, I'll certainly be around, happy to answer any other questions. But again, I'm so grateful you gave me an opportunity to come and be here. This, for the Hawkeye fans in any room, anyway, this is your team. It's your program. I'm just I have an opportunity to be an ambassador for that. So, please, we want to engage you. We want to hear your feedback, and we want to run a program that, one, furthers the institution's mission, but makes you proud of the young men and women and our coaches each and every day. So enjoy the weekend, enjoy Saturday, and let's go Hawks.
Thank you, Beth, for visiting and spending your time with us at the Rotary Club of Des Moines. We appreciate your sharing your leadership and insights and passion with us today. And thanks for all, I know there's another institution that plays a game this weekend, but thank you for all the good that you do for the state of Iowa. And like you said, go Hawks. And Doug, if any of you and Cyclone fans want to get a picture with Beth and me and our paraphernalia here, please come up. We won't immediately share it with all your Cyclone fans on social media. Okay, upcoming meetings. Remember, bring a guest who you think would make a good addition to our club or might want to hear one of our upcoming speakers. Please RSVP to Kitty by Wednesday at 9 a.m. September 11th, next Thursday. We can't meet here at the Embassy Club, so don't come here. We won't be here. But we will be meeting at Broadlawns Medical Center, where we'll hear from CEO Proctor Lurman. And immediately after our meeting and his presentation, we'll have the ability to tour if you'd like from about 1 to 1:30. He's offered that. So a reminder, RSVP, since we're off site next week, are due today for that meeting. If you haven't signed up, please let Kitty know you plan to attend. And I think there is a map available in the lobby today that shares where to park and enter the facility for next week. So no, that map will also be sent out with RSVPs after today. September 18th, Sherry Gupta, the founder of Culture All, will be back here at the Embassy Club, and Sherry will have a great presentation for us. And then September 25th, reminder, we will not have a lunch meeting that day. Again, we can't be here at the Embassy Club, but it works out well because we have our Think Fall event at Jester Park Nature Center in Granger that night on September 25th. So thanks to Rich Leopold again for allowing us to be at that beautiful venue for the 3rd year in a row. We'll have some Whatcha Smokin' Barbecue. We'll have music by Dan Medeiros. Very family-friendly event from 5 to 7. And keep in mind, you don't have to be there from 5 to 7. You can come late, leave early. The food will be out there from about 5:30 to 6:30 if you're planning. So again, please RSVP. I think invitations were just emailed out, right, Kitty?
Going out today.
That went out today? Okay, perfect. So watch your email for that. And then a few more fellowships in the next coming weeks. Be sure to mark your calendars. The Wheels Fellowship, Friday, September 19th from 2 to 4 at the Alba Car Collection in Ankeny. Any questions, please reach out to Randy Worth. And then our next morning fuel at Freedom Blend Coffee, from 9 to 10 a.m. Will be on, September 30th. Our very own Ann Shmerlda, Ann, I'm going to get your name right one of these times if she's here, the CEO of Blank Park Zoo. She will be presenting in our featured Rotarian. The fellowship is free and the coffee is on you. Thank you again for being with us today. Thank you, guests, for visiting for this exciting meeting. Thank you all for being a vital part of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. Stay true to the good until next week, and we are adjourned.